Alright, we're going to talk about deductive reasoning now, and we're going to go over two laws. The first one is the law of detachment, which simply states if the hypothesis of a true conditional is true, then the conclusion is true. So if the hypothesis is true, then you can assume that the conclusion is true. So let's look at a couple examples. Alright, so our first conditional statement is if I finish all of my schoolwork, then I can go to my friend's house. And then I have the statement, I finish all of my schoolwork. So what's the conclusion we can make here? Well, our conditional was if I finish my work, I can go to my friend's house. And then my conclusion was I finished my schoolwork. So the conclusion I can make is I will go to my friend's house. Because the hypothesis is true, then our conclusion is true. So I'm going to my friend's house. Alright, so if a ray divides an angle into two congruent angles, then it is an angle bisector. And then our conclusion there is ray AB divides angle DEF into two angles. So here we look at the go back to the conditional statement. If a ray divides an angle into two congruent angles, well, I look at my conclusion. It's dividing my angle into two angles, but nowhere in my conclusion does it say that the two angles are congruent. So my conclusion has to be that ray AB is not an angle bisector. There's no way I can prove that it is based on the information that I'm given. Alright, next we have the law of syllogism, and that is when you have two true conditionals and the hypothesis of one is the conclusion of the other, then you can state a conclusion. So we'll do a couple examples of this, but just know that we have to have two true conditional statements in order to use this law. Alright, our first example here is, the first one is, if a figure has three sides, then it is a triangle. And our second statement is if a figure is a triangle, then the interior angles add up to 180 degrees. So you'll notice here that the hypothesis of one, if a figure is a triangle, and the conclusion of the other, then it is a triangle, are the same. So now we can take the other two parts and make a conclusion. So if the interior angles add up to 180 degrees, then the figure has three sides. Alright, so let's do another example. Alright, so here we got the conditional statement, if you live in Grapevine, then you live in Tarrant County. The second conditional statement is if you live in Tarrant County, then you live in Texas. So our hypothesis of one, if you live in Tarrant County, is the conclusion of the other. You live in Tarrant County. So now we can make a conclusion out of the other two. So if you live in Grapevine, should be capitalized actually. Its name is city, which is a proper noun. Then you live in Texas. So that's the law of syllogism.